Welcome to the New Monks. This podcast is dedicated to those of us on the journey of evolution. Through these episodes, we will dive into the lives of individual people and discover what they have learnt and how they have handled their growth. We believe that we all have wisdom to be shared with each other and can learn from listening to each other's stories. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and Apple Podcasts, Spotify. If you feel like leaving us a review and sharing the love, that would be greatly appreciated. So this is just a heads up because, there's a lot of information that is coming to light at the moment, and through these episodes, each person is going to share a different side of that for them. Now, this isn't to say that every single thing that is shared here is going to be 100% accurate. It's just not where we are right now. It's just not the case of the unraveling and the disclosures that are being revealed to us. Obviously, things are always changing, and in one moment something can be so real and so true, and the next moment is completely shifted and changed into something else. This is the journey of evolution. This is the journey of ascension that we are going through right now. So this is just an invitation that your discernment is really, really important. As always, as usual, please take what resonates and leave the rest. Thank you. Hello and welcome back to the New Monks podcast. I am your host, Jay Muller, and today I'm speaking to Carlos from Souls of a Movement. I found his Instagram, again, like many of the other people that I've spoken to here on Instagram, speaking out over these past few years. He is speaking on a very wide spectrum of issues that he wants to highlight in this world. And we talk a little bit about his personal journey into the awakening. And he actually used to work in finance and left all of that behind to become, I guess you can call, a photographer activist, spiritual activist as well. And I always find it really interesting, people who have had such drastic changes in their life, especially moving from the world of finance and, where the focus is making money, I guess, and then moving into the complete opposite direction, which is more about finding a deeper sense of purpose. I just find that so interesting how the change can be so different. We also then speak about how he became this photographer at specific rallies and protests and all of the different things and conversations and opinions and perspectives that he has seen and that come along with what he is doing now with Souls of a Movement. You can find him on Instagram. He's always posting with very inspiring words as well. So I hope you enjoy this episode. Thank you. So, hello, Carlos. Thank you so
Hello,
much.
Jazz.
It's great to have you on here. I've been following your work for a little while now, with all your photos and also with all the words that you share. And yeah, I mean, obviously, from what I see, I can feel there's a lot of passion behind what you're doing, which I resonate with, especially over these past few years. So, first of all, thank you so much for doing it and also continuously for such a long time.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, for sure. But I'm sure so many people resonate with what you are doing.
Yeah, what I'm trying to do is to put the message out there and let that just take its own course without me trying to control who's reaching and in what way. And also letting go of attachment to quantities, of who follows, how many followers, what's the engagement, etc. And I've found out that the more I let go of that, the more the reach increases. So the more, and that's a pretty good analogy to life and how energy works. The more you obsess with the how of things,
Yeah.
the more those things become elusive. The more you put your focus and attention on where you want to go and what your aim is, without obsessing about the how and putting that in the hands of, God, source, the universe, or whatever you want to call it, the more things flow, because it's not about you and your ego creating the path, but it's more about you becoming an instrument for the path that's already within you to come out and express itself.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I feel like that's been a big one that's coming up for me recently. It's just like flow, opening the flow and allowing it to just come through. Because it's very easy to, or sometimes there are some blocks there that we have been there for ages and we don't even know, right?
yes, but now those blocks are becoming more and more evident in our lives.
Yes, I'm totally feeling that. It's just, but it's amazing and it's so beautiful. And I'm very grateful, actually. But yeah, what I normally like to do is just take a few deep breaths first before we begin.
That's
Yeah. And then just tell us how you're feeling right now.
I'm feeling great. Feeling exactly where I need to be, doing exactly what I need to be doing. So here we are.
Amazing. Yeah, alignment, purpose.
Yes, it's all about that.
Yeah, it's really good. I I mean, I definitely feel like I'm, like you said, it's becoming more obvious now, and all of that I feel like is bringing in the alignment. But it's amazing to be able to be in that place where you feel like you're exactly where you are. When you,
Yeah, well, it's not a it's a work, it's a job, to uh work on staying there as much as possible
yeah,
and going back and forth between, I see it as consciousness and unconsciousness.
yeah,
Unconsciousness is when we get into this automatic mode where we just live our own lives and go through our daily chores without even knowing what we're doing and who we are. And suddenly, well, I was like that for 30 something years, 24/7. And then I started, quote unquote, waking up, which is a very loaded term,
yeah.
and doing more and more work to be more and more conscious. And now, I swing back and forth
Mm,
all the time, but whenever I come back, I do it with consciousness. So
yes.
if I spend 4 hours doing X or writing something, I just forgot and left. Basically, I left consciousness.
Mm,
Uh, when I come back, I'm conscious of the fact that I came back. So that retrofits and feeds the process of consciousness. So next time there's something in the back basically calling you back. Each time you're gone, when you're back, it's like, oh, I was gone. And
mm,
sometimes it's some minutes, sometimes it's some hours, sometimes it's an entire day that you just, when I was moving and doing things and reading things, and you're gone. And you need to, at least in my case, work on being as present as possible as long as you can.
mm.
And we'll be doing that that work for the rest of our lives, probably.
Yeah, totally. It's true.
Never ends.
But it's rewarding when you can see how, you know, the difference between then and now, and how it does become just like more prolonged periods, you know?
Yes. Well, in my life, it's not only about that, but if the effects are much more dramatic because for I'm 44 now. So when I was until 36, I would say I was totally asleep and
Wow.
unconscious.
Yeah.
I was a Wall Street lawyer in New York. So I was in the core of the matrix, working for clients, banks, countries. I represented countries on their financial transactions. And I had made it to what your ego tells you is the top of the world. But I felt emptier and emptier every day and with no purpose and unhappy, and there was a mismatch of why, if I'm obtaining all that I want, why am I unhappy?
Mm-hmm.
And then in 2016, end of 2016, that entire thing that was building up collapsed within me. So not in the outside, but within me, it collapsed. And then I started observing the world differently, and I was basically guided, as I see today. My soul realized, okay, you're ready. So I started having people arriving in my life who started helping me understand what was going on, and books and things I was listening to, and people I was listening to, and people, synchronicities all over the place all the time. And basically, I opened this beautiful kind of worms where basically I realized I'm not living the life I came to live. So let me close this down, done. So from 2016 to 2019, I kept living my old life, doing what I was doing, but starting to work with learning. I feel I did a PhD by myself on energy, meditation, metaphysics, etc. And I started implementing all those things until it got to a point where I felt I need to let all my old life go. And that's what I did in 2019 without knowing what was coming.
Mm.
So basically, I felt I needed to let everything go, but I didn't have any answers. And I had one person working with me. She she basically calls herself an aura reader, but she works with energy. It's just a label that she puts for
Mhm.
people to sort of understand what she does. And she told me, and now she's one of my guides. I Guides in the sense of she helps me work with myself. I don't
Yeah.
follow anyone. I'm not a part of a movement, and
Yeah.
just doing what resonates with me.
Yeah.
And she told me you are being asked to quit your job, quit law, let all your old life go. I was in another relationship back then as well. You need to let everything go, and you'll feel as if you're walking towards a precipice and you need to jump. And you don't know if there's a net waiting for you down there. You don't know what's coming, but that's part of the design of your soul plan. You have to do that, and once you do that, things will be revealed to you, and you'll understand what is this is all about. So it was double already, quitting your job, quitting. I had two masters in law, one in Spain, one in Columbia University in New York, 20 years working as a lawyer. So it was a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of money invested in that path. And it was basically, burning bridges. Um, so I was terrified about doing it, but I finally did it. And when I did it, things started revealing to myself. And very synchronistically, I ended up one day documenting a encampment in Lower Manhattan in New York, which was basically was, you wouldn't believe that was happening in Manhattan. It was basically an entire park taken over with tents and people living there. So you had homeless people and trans people and um, drug addict. You had all the marginalized people from society, basically. And I spent, something told me to go there and start taking photos. Um, and that's what I did. And that I spent a month going every single. It was in the middle of summer. It was stinky, really dirty, very hot. I don't know if you've been to New York, but summers are disgusting. So, but I was there and I felt I need to be here. I need to be here. I need to be here. And that's how it all started. And then from that, it went to marches, and from one march to another one. And that's how what I've been doing since then. And I've been working on other projects in parallel, but this is one of the main two projects I've been working on after
This is the Souls of a Movement.
changing my life.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So rewind back to the time when you were working and you said something collapsed within you. What was that?
Yes. I feel it was my old, the construction and the structures of my old self, which were not really me. It was an entire persona with structures and instruments and everything that I created unconsciously during my entire life to basically protect myself from different things. And then it got to a point where that persona took over. So basically, I was that persona.
Yeah.
And that was not me. And that was not what my soul had come to do. Although everything was perfectly exactly as it was, there was no time wasted. I had to go through that process, but it got to a point where it was like, this is obsolete. You cannot be living this life because this is not you. In fact, another person I work with, she told me, you're going in exactly the opposite direction. So your soul came to go that way, and you're going that way. So obviously, it's going to get so intense and so uncomfortable that it's going to be unbearable at some point, and it was. So that's how I felt. I felt that I could not operate anymore. Literally, I would go to the office, again, Wall Street, big law firm, one of the top 10 firms in the world, and I would sit in front of these contracts and things I had to draft, and I could not do it. I could not. It's as if my wiring got messed up and started burning. So I would do, and those were things I would do every day for many years. So it was pretty automatic, and I could not do it. I would sit in front, and I was like, I cannot. I felt I was collapsing. Something was like basically burning.
Okay. Wow.
And it needed to be like that because otherwise I was not making the decision.
Yes.
So basically, it needed to collapse to force me to make the decision. Otherwise, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have made the decision.
So was it something you think that was building over time, or was it just really rapid? It was just spontaneous.
I always felt something, but very subconsciously. But I think that in the last couple of years before that, looking back, yes, things were speeding up.
Okay.
Basically, your soul, when you're in situations and scenarios that are not what you need or what you came for,
Yeah.
when it needs to bring you out, I think it starts showing you some small red flags. But things, when you don't react, things need to get more intense. Otherwise, you get stuck in the same place. So it needs to have a red flag and then give you a slap and then push you and then basically throw you under a bus so that you wake up, And I feel that if I didn't, I already started having physical symptoms. So now that I work with energy and metaphysics, I know that we are energy and that our bodies, which are energy vibrating at a lower frequency. So it's the densest part of our energy, our physical bodies. And it's the last one that speaks to you because all the other things happen in our energetic bodies before, but we don't listen. And it gets to a point where we didn't listen to our energy, our spiritual body, our emotional body, our mental. And at some point, this densifies into your physical body to basically talk to you and give you signs. And it was very close. And that is most of the times disease.
Yeah.
Um, and I felt I was this close if I kept it because I had a very stressful life, disaligned, not happy, not liking the people I worked with. It was, very intense. Not eating healthy at all, not exercising. So everything was designed. And I was very close to getting sick. But I was lucky to, I feel, change course before that happened.
Mm. But I guess, like you said as well, you kind of were leading the lifestyle and then realized that, hang on a minute, I'm not happy either. Like, what's going on? Isn't this supposed to give me some kind of fulfillment?
Yeah, and especially when you're doing things that the
The
system,
system,
your
yes.
ego, society, and everybody
Yeah.
tells you, oh, life is about this. And suddenly I was like, well, I'm having this. Why am I not happy?
Mm.
So it was like, that's when the collapse starts because it's okay, I made it. And it's like, well, but I feel empty and unhappy. So didn't the system tell me that everything was about A, B, and C? Now I have A, B, and C, and I'm still unhappy. So somebody lied to me, you know.
Mm.
Um, and I think that part of what I'm doing now is it gave me the power. It's an conscious and underlying power of being able to talk to people and express things, having been to places which if I hadn't been to, I would not be able to convey the same message with the same power. For instance, I was making a lot of money.
Yeah. Yes.
So now I can tell you money will never make you happy. It doesn't mean that you cannot have money, but
Yes.
if you're basing your happiness in money, I
Yeah.
guarantee you it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But I can say that because I had it. It's not because I read it in a book
Yes. Yes.
or
Yes.
because I'm resenting not having it, so I'm attacking what I don't have. No, I had it. I went through that. So when now I tell someone or I write about it or use my photography to express things like that, it comes with a punch because the soul that's on the other side receiving the message, without me needing to express it conceptually, knows and feels that it's genuine. That if I'm saying money will not bring you happiness, it's not that I read it in a book or on Instagram. It's
Yes.
because I went through it.
Yeah.
So that's why I feel that the entire process was very tough, but very necessary and useful, and was preparing me and giving me instruments for what was coming, which is what I'm starting to do now.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, that's the difference, isn't it, with like lived experience and then just say
Yes, and there's so many concepts that need to be
yeah, integrated.
uh, integrated. That's such an important concept because there's a lot of I feel that when we talk about awakening,
Yeah.
I feel there are two separate lanes that need to come together. Otherwise, it's a lame duck. You need to have the intellectual awakening, which means with your mind observing the world, observing yourself, and starting to understand how things really work in
Yeah.
this physical world, in terms of politics, in terms of the economy, in terms of financial systems, in terms of medicine. So that's an intellectual thing.
Yes.
And then you have the spiritual thing,
Yeah.
which is, who am I? What am I doing here? Am I more than a body?
Mm.
What is what is a soul? What are we all doing here?
What is death? What is
What
life?
is humanity? What is this group of souls doing here? What are we collectively? And if one of those two is missing, I see it all the time. You have a
Yes.
lot of people that call themselves awake, because they know or they suspect or they talk about all the conceptual, worldly things that are going on, but they're doing zero inner work.
Yeah, totally.
So that is not going to work, and all the denouncing of things that are happening in the world from this partial place is going to be totally unbalanced, and many times they will fall in the pitfalls of what you call it, darkness,
Yeah, yeah,
because it gets disguised in many ways.
yeah.
And then the opposite is this also happening. You have, and I went through, I'm very grateful that I had people guiding me to realize these pitfalls in my own path. So you can also go to the other side and just do the spiritual work, which is knowing them as soul, what we're doing here, blah, 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 but thinking, oh, this is all about light, and I just want to be in the light. And this world, the universe is not only light at a very high level in terms of dimensions. You could say it is at the ultimate level, but then when it starts separating until it densifies, it's not only light. So we need to know there's more than light, and we need to identify what's going on in the world in terms of all those things that we just said: politics, finance, etc. If you're just in this bubble of light without even acknowledging that you have darkness within yourself and that there's darkness in the world, that is not going to work either. So I feel it's very important to have the two, the intellectual and the spiritual, come together. And to work on balancing those two all the time, and also integrating our experiences and what we're learning, because one thing is understanding with your mind, and another thing is understanding with your core, with your soul, with your heart, and applying it to specific situations in your life. Because I can understand perfectly well what forgiveness is, but and understand it 100%. But then somebody does something to me, that my understanding of what forgiveness is doesn't mean I'm going to forgive.
Yeah.
And some people, and also I tend to do that sometimes, is stay in the concept and believing that is the work. I'm done.
Yes.
I got it. No,
That's
you didn't.
tricky.
You got half of it. You got the concept. Now you have to integrate it and apply it to your life
Yeah.
many times.
Yes.
Not even one. It's not like, oh, now I forgive. No, one
Yeah,
day you
yeah.
forgive, and then the next time you don't forgive again, or you have partially forgive. So this is like polishing. We're polishing ourselves, and the work never ends.
Yeah, 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 definitely.
Um,
Yeah, I feel like what you described, the two paths, is if it's just one, it can be very ungrounded in both
yes.
avenues. But what I find really interesting as well is like sometimes there's so much to be learned, and we're just always discovering more and
Yes.
still even in like both of the avenues. But it's just funny when like people say things like, oh yeah, but that's impossible, or like, oh and it's just like, how can you put a limit on there when there's so much and we've already discovered so much, like
Yeah. Yeah. No, I was saying that this also impacts the way in which I approach my Souls of a Movement project, because I think that lots of people, members of that community, get it by now, but there are many that don't. This mix, because I basically play with those two lanes all the time.
yes, 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 yes.
So I have the images, but in my writing, sometimes I go towards the spiritual direction. Sometimes I will go to the more dense,
Yeah,
3D worldly direction. Sometimes I mix both. And some people get uncomfortable with that because they feel they don't understand what's going on. It's like, but what are you talking about? What are you trying to convey? What is this page about? So that's one of the things that generates discomfort in some people. And the other aspect is that because I'm basically, what I want to do is raise use it as an instrument to raise consciousness.
Yeah.
With respect to spiritual stuff, worldly stuff, dark stuff, political, financial, and everything in between. Um, so I document and I go to marches and I talk about people from in this very divisive, polarized world. You can call it the extreme right and the extreme left,
Yes, yes,
and
yes, yes.
all the spectrum in between. And lots of people are very uncomfortable about that because they are used to living in echo chambers when no information from the quote unquote other side filters into their perspectives. So suddenly they are, for some reason, they got to Souls of a Movement. Probably
Yes, yes, yes,
because
yes, yes.
somebody they saw a post that resonated with them and their position. But then a month later, I'm posting something about a march or an event or something that is, it seems to be in the absolute opposite. So again, they get confused because it's many times I get asked in the comments, but who are you rooting for? On what side are you on? Are you Republican or are you Democrat? That kind of
Questions.
those kind of questions, and evidently those people have not been following sufficiently because they still feel that, as many other, Instagram accounts and projects, I'm just trying to sell you a side, which is not what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, man, it's so interesting because that's it's so important because, and I can understand what you're saying because like you're speaking about the whole full spectrum basically. This is one thing that I interviewed Corey, Infinite Sheik. I don't know if you follow him, but I love the term he uses. He says it's a full spectrum awakening now. So it's not just one of the avenues. It's the
Yes,
whole picture.
yes. Well, for
Yeah,
those who are willing to do the work and see it, for some it's just an avenue, and for some it's nothing. It's
yeah.
just
But it becomes clear though, because like you said, when some people arrive and they're a bit confused, like who are you rooting for? It's like if you're finding yourself in any of the camps, it doesn't ultimately a lot of the time I think it doesn't take you into a place of like unity and like
yes.
heart centered, you know what I mean?
No, it's still separation. I am good, we are good, they are evil.
Yeah.
So I'm with the good ones, and that's not what this process is
It's
about.
about, yeah.
Many times you are with respect to a specific issue that resonates or doesn't resonate with you. You might feel, and you need to do your own. This is a very personal
Yeah.
thing. You feel this is the right thing to do or not do, or to say or not say. Well, do it, but to start defining and labeling the world as black and white. This is all good, and this is all. Everything that's on this side is bad, and everything that's on this side is. That's that's not how I see it. In fact,
Yeah.
I work every day to get out of that
Yes.
perspective,
Yeah.
because I feel it's an imbalanced, not integrated perspective. I respect others who don't agree, but that's how I see it. And that's what I try to portray in my with my Souls of a Movement project.
Mm.
And yeah, I counter this every time, and also I see how we we don't see what things are, but we see what we are. So I post something with an image and a text, and
Yeah.
you would assume sometimes they're pretty straightforward,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you have different people seeing totally radically different things,
Things
reacting totally
really different.
different,
Yeah.
reading the text totally different, or not reading, or basically reading and seeing, and with their mental, with their physical eyes, but not seeing beyond it. A good example was recently a couple of months ago, I posted something about, I think it was in Uganda, if I'm not wrong, that they had passed a law basically criminalizing LGBTQ people, criminalizing, jailing. It was pretty extreme. So I said this, if I'm for freedom, that's one of the main themes in my work. This is totally unacceptable. And I started having people coming at me saying for the craziest things. Well, if you start with this, then abortion and that, and it shows you how it's a side basically being defensive and just being scared of anything that's coming from outside of me and my side. So whatever topic, conversation, post, or anything basically gets close to that, it's trauma. I feel at the core of it is fear and trauma. Whatever gets close to it, it triggers it, and the reactions are irrational, because why are we talking about what abortion when I'm talking about criminalization of LGBT people in Uganda?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Why are we? What is this coming from? And it's because it's this mash of
Mm,
energy that's trauma, and whenever you trigger it, it just comes out and expresses
mm.
in the craziest ways that you can imagine.
It's so
Um,
interesting. It's like our trauma is so wrapped up in the collective, the themes that are happening globally,
yes,
and that's why I think it is so important to talk about these things, you know.
yes,
But
yes, with consciousness.
yes, but the other thing is that I notice as well, because we kind of talk about on that one side of the worldly side, but then I definitely see in the spiritual communities, there's totally like the bypassing that happens. And I mean, listen, I guess some people are just kind of not quite there yet, but like, I'm sure that like, for example, they must somewhat within that kind of vibe can kind of come across your post and and maybe think like, why is he talking about? Because it's heavy and it's dark, you know what I
Yes, yes. Well, that's why I see, and I even have a file that I keep
mean? Yeah.
with interesting comments or things that make me think or
Wow.
that blow my mind, not for good reasons. So I get all these things that you're saying. It's basically it's a good sample of our spiritual path. How
Hmm.
that I get, and lessons that I get just from Souls of a Movement, and how and doing it,
Yeah.
because then I have lots of people from the spiritual, and all these are labels. I don't like these
Yeah.
labels, but it's easy
Yes.
to have to have the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
For the more spiritual people who are on the spiritual side of
It's
things,
like,
without doing the other,
yeah.
and grounding and bypassing and leaving the other things on the side, which come to me and say, stop talking about X, because when you
Wow.
talk about this, you're
Manifesting
basically
it.
manifesting it. So you're putting energy. Stop focusing. And what I respond to them, I don't. Most of the times, I don't. By the way, I don't respond. Because if I start engaging, it just drains all my energy, and that's not what I want.
Yeah. And that's not what I'm
Then,
manifesting.
but no. Sometimes that one is one of the instances I have responded, which is we can denounce and talk about darkness. In fact, if we're in this physical world, we need to. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean that it's gonna consume all my energy and that I'm gonna
Mm.
put my emotion, attention, and focus, which is what manifests things in the physical world.
Mm.
But I'm gonna denounce it, because also in energy work and metaphysics, you have boundaries.
Yes.
And for a boundary to exist, you need to say no. And to say no to something,
You need to
you
know.
need to know that's there. Otherwise, you cannot say no.
Yes.
It just pulls you in, and you have no clue what's going on.
Yeah.
So for that, you need to, and that's why I talk about pretty controversial things in a very in a very um, settle way, and that's I think something I learned from my legal lawyer
Oh,
years.
wow. Yeah.
To go into very
Deep. Yeah.
controversial, and know how to say things, and how
Yeah.
to talk about dark stuff, but
Yeah.
without going crazy, irrational, on the defensive kind of mode, but
Triggered.
just expressing in a
Yeah.
very, polite, calm,
Yeah.
compassionate way. This is what I see, and that's it. At least this is what I see.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's a very helpful to become a neutral observer. It's part of what this process is about, to be able to neutrally observe. But you have to observe. The spiritual side is not, oh no, I don't observe. Yes, you do.
Yeah.
You do it neutrally, but you need to observe. And if there's darkness in the world, you
Yeah.
need to observe it.
That's such a good
Otherwise, you
point.
cannot be neutral. You cannot be a neutral observing
Observer.
if you're not
No,
observing.
that's really good. I like that.
Then add the neutrality, you know, work on being neutral and not being triggered every time you have a politician, a person, an institution doing or saying something,
Yeah.
but you need to observe it. You cannot, you
Not.
know,
Yeah. I mean,
pretend it's not happening.
exactly. It's very interesting. I think we've all seen a lot of the like, oh, I'm not gonna look, I'm not gonna read, I'm not gonna because I think people are just worried that it's gonna consume them, like wholly and
Well, it
completely.
could, but
Right.
that fear is real. But
Yeah.
well, you have to do your job so
The
that
work.
you see it and you can talk about it and it doesn't consume you.
Exactly. That's the point. Yeah.
Because the energies that are in play when you see something and it consumes you are the same energies that are in play when you don't want to see it for fear that it consumes you.
Ooh. Oh. Oh my
So
word.
you're not in a better
Place.
space. You're in
Yes.
exactly the same space. You tell yourself in your mind, this is better, but energetically it's the same. The
Yeah.
only work is the center, is observing with neutrality,
Yeah.
talking about it with compassion,
Yeah. Because you're still.
disagreeing with people and talking about all these topics and being fine with it.
Yeah.
That's this for me. It's like also like a PhD in energy work. This
Oh.
the work, the project itself, because it forces me. I have to go to marches. I go to many marches where I don't agree with what's being said or what's being expressed or the topic of the march, and I still go because first I tell myself, you're not here to judge. You're a neutral observer. You're not above anyone. You're not better than anyone. You don't have all the answers, and everybody's a loser and they're clueless. So that's like a first stage of inner work based on what I'm doing. Then I have the images. Then when I have the images, I have to decide this image, this other image at this time, because I don't post chronologically. I can go to a march and post
Uh-huh.
something from that march a year and a half later. It's
Yeah.
not that I go and I post and I go and I post. It's as I go as I feel, and then I have to write. So when I write, I reframe. It's basically the system is telling you X about this, and I reframe it from another perspective. At least that's what I'm trying to do.
Mm.
So that reframing for expressing it to others forces me to reframe it within myself. So if I'm telling you, if you see this person who's very objectively dark and doing things from a very dark place, but this person has a purpose and a role to play in your own development, so honor that person, even though this person is doing things that are very dark. Well, that is very triggering for a lot of people.
Yeah, it is. Totally.
And or especially about certain institutions, certain things that are, people that are operating in our world. But that's how I see it. But it's not only that I'm saying it for others, it forces me to go into that mindset all the time, because it's like, if I'm saying it's because it's within me. If not, I don't want to say it. I have to have it integrated within me. So that happens a lot. And then another instance of doing my work, my inner work through the project, is uh, having all these comments that many times they're nice, but many other times I have lots of haters and people that write awful things. and people that disagree, and from my perspective, they're totally wrong in what they're saying in terms of worldly stuff, and letting that be, and working on not being triggered, and not have at the beginning I felt the need to respond to everyone, because then if that person said that then and I didn't respond, that it would reflect on badly on. And now it's like, I don't care. I don't need approval. I don't need more support, less support. I don't know. I don't need people to agree with me. And all that, it's not only about Soul Soba movement and my project and what I write on Instagram. Each time I'm confronted with that, I'm working on myself and my own energy. Because tomorrow, if I'm with a friend and he says or she says something that I don't agree, it's the same energy. And I've been practicing all the time. So when she says something, I'm like, I'm fine. I don't need this person to agree with me.
Yeah.
And it's happened a lot. It was in parallel happening. Basically things that happen in my life and in my project go in tandem all the time, and I see it as it happens. And during the pandemic in New York, the lockdown years and the mandates years, etc., I had a lot of input of people, eyes, and positions that were very impositive, that wanted to be imposed on me from a place that I did not agree with, and I stood in what I believed, in my truth. But then I did a lot of work of accepting that they could think and do whatever they wanted. I didn't, in order for me to be comfortable and happy and in peace, I didn't need the world, the external world, including those people, to accommodate in the way I believe they should be for me to be in a good place. I'm in a good place regardless. So say what you want, do what you want. I'm working on myself. Obviously, I express what I believe it needs to be expressed. I denounce what needs to be denounced. I don't do things that I don't believe I want to do. But then when I'm done with me and it gets to the outer world, and you do you. And it's also been very, very a very good teaching experience.
I mean, I feel like this is the kind of like upgrade for all of us now who are choosing to walk into freedom. It's and life is showing us these lessons in this way, especially since 2020. It's like we have to be able to be at that place, because if you're not at that place, then you're just gonna succumb to these emotions and just follow. Oh, I have to do it because da 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 da.
Yeah.
So this is
we don't have to anything.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the whole point. And now, as you're talking, it's like, yeah, we're standing even more powerfully in our boundaries.
Yes, absolutely. And also, it was another good lesson. I have so many personal lessons, like things that I've learned through the project. I could spend an entire day talking about them. Another one is that you can, being spiritual and being truthful to yourself and standing in your sovereignty, etc., does not mean that you need to be stupid. You can be very smart and very strategic about how you do things and how you express and when you express and in what way, etc., and be very spiritual, very metaphysical, very etc. And I learned a lot of that through the project, because I'm talking about this again, sometimes very controversial topics, especially for the platforms where I'm speaking. But I was never, I think once I was flagged. It comes and goes that I'm shadow banned, but once I think something was flagged, but it was even a mistake. It was a mistake.
So that's what you mean by stupid, like.
Well, I've talked about a lot of things in there, and I've shown lots of march, but as I see it, maybe I'm wrong, but I
Yeah.
feel that in a strategic, smart way.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was not just dumping. People need to wake up, so I'm dumping everything in whatever way I want because this is what I believe needs to be. Well, if you're doing it in that platform, tomorrow your account is gone.
Yeah.
So guess what?
Exactly.
That was not very effective.
Yes. Wow.
So this we're living in a physical world as well. So yes, you have a lot of you can have work on yourself and spread your light by example and do your inner work and work on your darkness, etc., on your shadows. But if you want to spread concepts and messages which are used in this physical world as well, and you want a platform and you want the channels to stay open, be smart about it.
Mm.
Be and again, it requires not being triggered. It requires being patient
Yeah.
because I've been doing this for almost 3 years and a half now,
Yeah.
nonstop. So now I feel it's starting to, and it's counterintuitive because now you feel, oh, things are the craziest part of the last 3 years are over. So less people will be connecting with what you're doing, and I feel it's the opposite.
Wow. Really?
Now it's starting to spiral up, and I had to be patient because if I had wanted to say everything from day one, this is all I see, this is all I know, this is my account will be gone because I would have been, censored and it would have been taken down ages ago. So I had to be patient. That's another very important spiritual lesson. The times of the mind and of the ego are not the times, it's not the time of necessarily the time of our soul. So
Mm.
many times we say we need to do this now. This is very, I'm moving very slowly. I'm not achieving what I have to because this needs to be said now and this needs to be changed now.
That's
And that's not the case. That's your
capitalism.
ego,
Yeah.
you know? And the soul just needs time.
Yeah.
And now I'm doing this thing. And maybe other people were doing, every soul is different and every project is different. But I feel that this being patient
Mm.
with the how and what to say and how to say, etc., made it more solid. And also, that's the other good part is that I'm finding I don't want to preach to the choir. That's not the purpose
Mm.
of what I do.
Oh, really?
So yeah, you have lots of people that they follow. Generally, they agree with. But the ones I'm trying to reach is the ones are people that are starting to question things and
Yes.
starting to challenge, not the ones that are already convinced. And if you go full echo chamber, you're not going
Yes.
to reach anyone else. You're just going to reach more people that live in a larger echo chamber, which is not your Instagram account, but it's a larger one with, you know, different social media accounts and media outlets, etc. But you're going to still be preaching to the choir. So I don't feel that's the service I want to provide.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want to reach out to people who are many times in the middle or
Yeah.
who are starting to question things or who don't know what's going on. And for that you need to be also have a platform where the messaging, the
Yeah.
aesthetics and everything is welcoming for everyone
Yes.
and not for anyone who's just and they just go in and they see something in writing on it that
Yeah.
it's so aggressive that it's like no, even if at some point there's truth in what they're seeing or reading,
Yes.
but the envelope also needs to be appealing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if you bring that a great message in a disgusting envelope, well, they won't open it. So the envelope has to be appealing and not aggressive, even when this truth many times are by definition very aggressive
Yeah, they
in a
are.
good way because they challenge your entire
Yeah.
cosmovision.
Yeah.
But I want everybody to feel comfortable, and I also have to sometimes I do it very little, but I pay attention to comments because I don't tolerate aggressions
Mm-hmm.
against me or against name calling. I delete and block. I don't negotiate. I don't explain. If you don't understand that you cannot come here and say you're X because done, and I don't waste my energy. I don't care. That's what I do. But it's very few people that do it. Most people are very respectful, even if they don't agree with me or with other people who are expressing their opinions there. So yeah.
It's funny, isn't it, that whole like creating the boundaries within your own community, because that's what it is really, isn't it? But
It is a
also,
community.
yeah, but it's good. It's good that you can just do that, like be very clear with it, because that stuff is just so unhelpful. It's just so unhelpful.
It is.
But yeah, and interesting what you said about who you're reaching out for, because I feel like actually a lot of us have different purposes, and some people resonate with just like supporting other people who are like already, I guess, quite aware of what's happening, which is also fine. It's just
Yes, it's
different.
different
Yeah,
paths.
exactly.
Um,
What so you were explaining before about how you started taking photos and you started going to marches, but this was like before 2020. So like how did the
no,
social
that was in March 2020. That first thing, the first event, this encampment in Manhattan was in March 2020.
okay, wow.
So it was
On the
then.
yeah.
March or April. Yeah, but yeah, then.
So how
Uh,
was the Souls of Community, like how was that birthed throughout that period?
so I started. I don't even know what I did. I had so many images by then.
Uh,
And I had my personal, and usually until then, I posted everything on my personal
personal
account.
account, yeah.
And this one started, I had so many images and so many things I wanted to say that I thought I'm going to open a separate account. I'm going to just start posting them there more as a file for myself. So it's already there. Um, I picked black and white because I felt it was timeless, and it felt more in some instances a documentary, and also it's more unifying. So you can have different issues. Many of these issues and movements in politics, etc., have very specific colors and signs and symbols that already convey lots of things in your mind when you see them. So when you bring it down to black and white, it removes a lot of that energetic load that they have. So that's what I started doing, and started writing very basic things, and nobody liked or followed or cared. But for some reason, the algorithm started, which is good as everything. We have instruments that can be used for good or bad. But this one, the algorithm started showing this account to people, and more people started showing up, and it started growing, and I kept doing this thing. And because at the beginning it was that encampment, and then many of the racial justice marches in New York, including, I'm always moving to the margins, within the Black community, you had the Black trans community in New York, which felt they were not being represented or embraced by the Black community, because they said that the Black community can be very homophobic. So you started seeing, this is how nuanced this path is. Nothing is what it seems. So then within the Black community, you have people that said, this does not represent me, I need another movement. So I started documenting that as well, so that you would see it in terms of the echo chambers as extreme left issues, especially in the US.
Yeah.
But then came Trump's January 6th march to the Capitol.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I said, and I didn't even know it was happening, and somebody told me, you should go there. And I was like, but why? It's not a social. My brain didn't process it as a social. So I was like, no. And I said, well, this is people. Aren't you doing souls? And I had already come up with that name. Which, by the way, someone at the beginning in that encampment, I told them, I'm thinking about this name, just chatting to, and it was like, that's a very lame name. Souls of a movement. but it sticks.
Yeah. Whoa.
So I decided to go, and I went to DC, and then that was the first time where I had documented something that was on the opposite side of the spectrum. And when I posted that, all the followers that I got from the beginning, which were all mostly left leaning, lost it. Just
Wow.
and not because I was not defending. And again, I'm not saying I agree. I'm documenting
Just
souls,
posted
and
it.
I'm documenting, and also in terms of energy work, when I was there, was very, and that I tell a lot of people when I'm talking about this, the energy I felt at the Black Trans marches, if I
Yeah.
closed my eyes and checked in with the energy I felt, was very similar to the Trump march. Why? Because you have traumatized people, you have people with anger, anxiety, depression, sadness, etc., in both sides. So I felt that, and again, you cannot say that because it goes against what the system says. These are good and these are evil. Well, I felt traumatized energy in both places. So when I posted that and reflecting on that, I got a lot of backlash. Why are you there? Why are you giving visibility to that? Why? And it already felt, oh, there's something here. I need to be doing this.
Yes.
In this, trying to walk this center. And that's how it was basically revealed to me. It's not that I thought, oh, I want to do this. I'm going. It kept showing to me.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
then I embraced it. And now that's what I'm doing. So I talk about, again, things that my audience believe are more left or more right, but I just go for what I feel and frame it in a compassionate, metaphysical, spiritual way, and then you can do. And if you don't like it, you're gonna follow. You can leave.
Yeah.
You don't need to agree.
So interesting.
You know?
And now the followers, do you think people are like kind of understanding a bit more now, or?
Yeah. Now it's the community is larger, so I think there's
Yeah.
everything. But I think there's a lot of people that have been there for a while, so they get it. Newcomers sometimes are a little bit surprised because if they see they came for a
Yes.
post X, and then the
Yes.
next one was in the same vein, and the next one is,
Yeah.
and a month later I come out with something that in their mind is totally unexpected.
Yes.
It throws them off, and they sometimes they announce, as you know, and on as people do these days, this which is an energetic imbalanced way of doing things, which is I'm announcing that I'm unfolding.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
If you unfollow, just unfollow, just
That's
leave.
so true.
The fact of needing to announce that's an imbalanced energetic
Yeah.
way of doing it, just
Yeah.
leave.
Yeah.
But now it's a thing. You see it all the time. I'm following. This is I'm following. I'm following. I'm following. So
So true. Yeah, but that path I think is so important, and it's the middle path, but it's also like the wider perspective. And for some reason, sometimes we seem to just get caught in these dynamics of the polarity. And it has to be this way or it has to be that way. So
yeah, but I think that we're caught because we haven't done our inner work, but also
yeah,
because that's exactly what the system feeds.
yes, so true.
All the structures of power, they feed that. They need us to be operating from that
Yeah,
space of division and hatred.
division.
The
Yeah,
moment that is gone, the system will collapse for
humble.
good. But in the meantime, they feed it, and they feed it in every possible way that exists all the time. Once you're aware of what's going on, you see it all. You just see it all the time. They feed it and feed it and feed it. So that's another. I'm trying all this in a very small way. I'm trying to work on a tiny antidote against that.
Yes,
So system that hate each other, and now I have I can talk about different things in the same space. I have people from the right and from the left in the same space. I have people from different races, now more and more people from different countries around the world, and they can all be in the same place without needing to agree on everything, without needing to. It's basically don't hate each other
Literally simple.
because you don't agree, so that's also part of what I'm trying to do. It's like different aspects of the project.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds so simple. Don't hate each other.
Yep, it is, but
Yeah, that's totally where it is. And yeah, one of my friends said to me the other day, like, he went on this date and it was this girl who I think kind of like, in a way, disowned her parents because they had different political views. And he said something like, he was just like, I don't think I can continue because I don't want to be with someone who, is judging people on their beliefs because people change their beliefs all the time. And I was just like, wow, that's so true.
yes, but at the same time, when and obviously this is something very difficult to do. I'm not saying that's easy, but when we need to distance ourselves and not see, our parents because they are so judgmental. We are also being judgmental.
Yeah, so true.
So we're doing what we're saying we're denouncing.
Yes.
And we're doing what we're saying is bad about them and darkness and unconsciousness take different shapes and forms, so that's why it's sometimes difficult to identify them.
Yeah.
But in this case, if you go to energy, the energy of you saying they are clueless and they are mean people because they're judgmental and blah 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 blah, so I'm staying away, is the same energy of what you're saying you don't agree with them.
Yeah, it's the same as what you said about the two paths. And I can't look at it, and I like how you distinguish between it's the energy, because sometimes it's very difficult to see what's really playing out. But
yes,
really,
most of the time, as I always say, in the metaphysical spiritual world, nothing is what it seems.
It seems. Ooh.
Nothing is what it seems. And most of the time, what is presented, and the system is an expert in doing this, what is presented as caring and virtues, if you read energy, it's the exact opposite. So part of doing the work is allowing ourselves to get to a point where we are, and training ourselves where we can read energy regardless of the words, regardless of the presentations. And once you do that, there's no more hiding. Because if it's energy interacting with energy, and if you're reading energy, you cannot disguise it in different kinds of words or different kinds of appearances. If I read your energy, there's no more hiding. There's no more bullshit. I know what you are about. And I feel that we are going in that direction. Things are starting to be individually and collectively more and more transparent for those who are doing the work and wanting to see. They're becoming evident and transparent and obvious. And more, you can read through the bullshit. It's not bullshit. And before, when we were not sufficiently trained, or there was not enough people sufficiently trained, the system would portray something as good and caring and whatever, and it would take people individually and collectively 5 years, 10 years to figure things out. Now things are portrayed, you have lots of people that fall into all the pitfalls and traps, but many people just see it, they feel it, they see it, they see through the words. It's like, I don't care when you say all these nice things, what is this all about? And you see it. Energy. Same thing with people, with friends, with family members. So things are getting, and I think it's going to intensify. Things are going to get more and more transparent energetically. We're going to see more and more the energy, which is what it is. There's no labels. It is what it is. Than the labelings and the reshapings and the presentations of things in your face, which do not reflect the real energy behind them. So that's happening. I think that is intensifying in every aspect of society. Things are becoming very transparent. And some people tell me, well, but there's still the majority of people are still clueless. Well, that doesn't mean that they're not becoming more transparent.
Oof.
Or, for a substantive mass of people, which is growing exponentially, things are becoming much more obvious. And in energy, for shift meaningful shift to happen, you don't need 100% of the energies involved. You need, even in terms of physics and mass, you need 51%.
Yes.
Okay, so that already leaves you in a very good place. And then not every person in this planet represents, we all, at an ultimate level, our souls all have the same amount of light.
Yeah.
But in terms of how we've cleaned out the dirt that's been put on top of that light, some lights are shining more, with more power than others. So in some instances, you have very few very powerful lights illuminating things in this planet, that one of those are equivalent to 100,000 dark ones.
Yeah.
It's not 1-to-1.
Yeah. It doesn't work like that.
So you don't need everybody to be awake, and no, you need a critical mass. Yes. And that is growing. I just see it out in my personal life, and everywhere, in social media, it's happening, So we need to keep doing our work and having patience, and things are going to happen.
I feel like what you said about energy is so vital. Right now, it's so important to be able to understand how it works and to see it from that perspective.
Because that's the universe is that.
Exactly.
It's trying to speak English in the physical world without having learned English. So you won't be able to operate. And the real reality is not physics. It's the physical world and the system. That's a tiny portion of reality. Reality is the energetic aspect. It's metaphysical, and it's much more powerful and preponderant than the physical part. So if your language is only physical, you don't speak the language of reality. You don't understand it. You cannot shape it. You cannot change it, because you think that this is all there is, and this is a tiny part of it.
Yeah.
Now the language more and more is energy. That's the language.
Yeah. So true, man.
And if you don't speak energy, you will become more and more illiterate
and lost in translation.
Not only lost, illiterate.
Yeah.
As people who don't know how to read, well, that's who you will become in the world that's coming. If you don't speak energy, you need to speak it. You need to understand it. You need to express it. You need to use it. You need to change the word. If you don't, you're going to become an illiterate person. You won't be able to operate. So that's where we're going, I feel.
Yes.
Energy. And now you even say it as a language. If you talked about these things 5 years ago, 10, test it around you, most people would just, roll their eyes. And now, every time you speak about any of the things in any crowd, at least people listen.
People are way more receptive.
People, maybe they don't agree, but nobody, at least in my world, and I know a lot of people from different parts of the world, nobody's like, oh my, that's so bad bullshit. That you could get some years. Now, people, at least they listen. They're starting to question, and they're starting to see that more and more people are questioning. So it's like, oh, maybe I should be questioning too, because there are lots of people around me that are questioning things. So it's interesting.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I was listening to this video the other day. It was talking about during Lemuria and during that fall at that time, that apparently we hadn't learned this ability basically to read the energy, and it was just, I guess, on that spiritual side where you're just trusting that everything is light and it's all fine, and That's kind of what happened. And so now this time it's like, no, we can't do that again.
Have you learned the lesson?
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. It's not the first. It's not our first
That's
rodeo.
time, yes.
It's not our first rodeo, and well, more and more people are realizing that we're,
Yes,
you've been through this before.
or
Well,
yeah,
I've been told through one of my guides that when I'm confronted with, and I always go, the topics I work on, and in my life in general, I'm always in this like marginal,
a niche.
complex place, and I was told that it's because I've seen all these things before. I've seen collapses of things and wars and deaths, and so now I can walk through them with a pretty
Yeah.
yeah, with pretty much a sort of familiarity. It's like this is not totally foreign to me. I
Mm.
feel this. I don't. It's uncomfortable, but
Mm.
I feel it like this is familiar.
Yeah,
Um, and when they told me that, I was like, yeah, that
makes sense.
resonates.
Yeah.
I've been around.
What you said earlier as well about, I don't belong to any groups, da, da, da. I feel like that, and with what you just said now, like I just walk through them and I just don't stay there. And I don't stay
Yes,
very long. I'm just like, cool,
I have lots of groups and little groups and pairs of people. That's my life.
yes.
The thing I belong to a group. That's not me. And in 2 days, I'm going to be saying something that upsets a group
Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, that's
because
so
I'll be
funny.
challenging whatever
Yeah.
beliefs the group is based on.
Yes.
So then I'm
Yes.
no longer part of the group. So yeah, that's who I am. Yeah.
Wow, yeah. And you know what? Sometimes people come to me and they say, I really appreciate your words. But there's something that I will know that I will share and they're not going to like. So
Yeah,
I'm just like, that's cool. But, at the same time, like,
I have to.
yeah.
You have to. If you come from a place of love and respect and checking
Mm.
within and understanding what you need to say needs to be said or not said for you, you can say it. Then you're not responsible for the
But
reaction.
yeah, totally. And also this is what's happening now. We're completely debunking all of the lies, and
I
there's
mean,
so much of it.
yes, in every level, in every aspect of life, in every
Yeah,
aspect of society. It's
every
international. It's all around the world. It's not local. And
yeah,
it's on steroids. It's going so fast, so fast. Things that 5 years ago, 10 years ago were
so true.
unquestionable and
So
challengeable,
true.
and
Yeah,
now they're on the table for debate.
yeah,
Yeah,
man.
they're trying to suppress it, obviously, in many ways, but it's there, and they
Yeah.
cover this thing here, and it shows up in another way, and they try to cover this one, and it shows up in another. They cannot,
Hide it.
do it.
Yeah, and I feel like it's becoming more obvious, but it's like they say, whatever they're kind of doing since 2020, right? I feel like actually people have become more open, like you said, to these things, and it's just worked backhandedly in the opposite direction that I don't know.
Well, but that's because I
That's how it works.
believe that's how energy and light works.
Oof, yes.
So if you do things from, and again, darkness is a part of light. Only if you go very up in the comprehension of things, light is everything. But then when it starts dividing itself, you have darkness, which is part of light, which
Light
was born from
from
light.
light.
So, but in this physical world, darkness is darkness, and it is what it is, and it's there, and we have duality and we have contrast.
Yes.
Uh, so, whatever, this is something I learned this concept recently, which is very helpful, which is darkness does not generate its own energy and
Yes.
needs to feed from the
Yes.
outside,
I
and
like
light generates its own energy. And you see it once you
that.
understand that, you
Yeah.
understand, oh, this is darkness, this is light, this is darkness, this is light, and not as a
Yeah.
black and white kind of
No.
polarization thing, just a understanding thing. This is what it is, then I can do whatever I want with what I have, but I need to know
Mm-hmm.
what it is.
Mm-hmm.
um And whatever doesn't come from light right now, very fastly, it's losing its power. It's like building a castle with sand, with a sand base, with a very weak base. The system tries to build the structures and things that come from, and darkness means from trying to funnel and and get your energy to feed itself. The more they do that, it cannot but backfire. It's going to backfire because it doesn't have the stamina to keep going. It doesn't have the energy.
Yeah.
It needs to feed from the outside, and the more people in the outside say, "I'm not feeding you," it just collapses.
Yes.
But if you're coming from the light, nothing can stop you.
Yeah.
Nothing can stop you. So all these things, structures, strategies, systems, institutions, government, all that we know, if they don't come from a genuine light place, they're designed and destined to collapse. They don't have the energy, sufficient energy, and the collapse in most of the cases comes up as a boomerang. They try to do X and it generates the opposite effect. They try, well, look at the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Thanks, and again, that's why we have to thank and honor darkness.
Yes.
Thanks to the last 3 years,
Yeah. This is
we
big.
have so many people waking up, so many people questioning, debate, etc. Yeah, things are also very uncomfortable in other aspects, but it had amazing results. And were those results part of the plan? No. The plan was we're doing X, Y, and Z, and suddenly people start waking up and start questioning, and that
Yeah.
wasn't a part of the plan.
Yes.
And that was a huge backfire. And this is not stopping. And now, and I also feel that the system is so invested in the path that it took that they cannot retrieve, they cannot go back.
It's
The
too late
system
now.
So they need to double down and double down. And the more and the magic of that is, yes, it's more uncomfortable while it lasts, but the more they double down because they need to do it very fast because they're running out of time. So they're more uncomfortable and they're doing it with less strategy, less smartly. So that makes more people wake up and more people question because it's becoming grotesque. But they cannot stop because now it's going to, and they need to keep going. So it becomes more grotesque and more, and until a point there's a sufficient critical mass of people saying, "We see you."
Oof.
And once you've seen, this is darkness and shadows. Once there's light seeing the shadows, there's no more shadow or darkness. It's light. By definition. If you have light, you don't have darkness. You have light. So the moment this critical mass basically sees you, and I guess good goosebumps, the moment that light is on the darkness with a critical mass, game over. There's no more, because the darkness no longer can feed from those energies. It can no longer play a game of pretense because nobody's pretending him. And if you see the world, it's going very fast in that direction. But then I feel there's going to be aspects of this reality in which you are in this physical world, which will be like a bifurcation.
Yeah.
So you have a portion who will say, "I'm staying in the dark." Okay, but you'll be allotted a portion of reality where you will live in your dark world.
Dark smart city.
Yeah, for instance. But that's not going to be reality for many other people.
Yeah.
So and it's gonna, and there's a free will. So if you want to live in that dark space, you can do it. But we're going to be separated. All this in this I believe is in the physical world. If you go ultimately to the higher levels, we're all part of the same plan, and it's all part of light, and every soul is, so that's at least my perspective.
That's amazing. I'm so happy that you explained it in that way. It's so clear. And I don't know, I feel like that's exactly, it's a different way of looking at what is happening, the different dynamics. And I love what you just said here at the end. at a different level, like it's all connected, it's all part of the play, because it's and say whatever higher dimension,
Yes.
it looks different to
Yes.
this one. Everything looks
Yes.
different. The truth is like
Yes.
it's
And that's why yesterday, maybe you can close with this. I said something about, I posted about the protests, what's happening in France, and I said, I used the word where the world looks like a downward spiral into chaos. And
mm,
this person responded, downward? No, I see it as a upward, amazing process of people waking up. And what I responded is everything, two seemingly contradictory propositions can be true at the same time, depending on what perspective you're
oof,
seeing them from. So if you're seeing things from pure 3D, yes, this is downward spiral of chaos into
yes,
chaos. But the same thing, if you elevate yourself and you see it from the larger, more evolved process, it's an upward uprising of consciousness. And both things are true at the same time,
and
but depending on what lens you're using.
and that is the bifurcation, right? As well.
And that is also the bifurcation. Yes.
Wow, yeah.
Yep. So yeah, interesting times.
Yes, it is very interesting times. So, and I would love to just ask you two more questions. How do you, like, I feel like this, you found your purpose, this is it, and you're doing it. Are you like constantly always feel like you have the passion and like drive to share and to write and to, what's that process like for you?
Yes, it is there because I connect to this place of service, which is very open within me from my recent years and my inner work. So from that space, yes, sometimes from my personality, sometimes I'm more tired because it demands a lot. And now I'm traveling more because I'm doing it more in, I'm trying to expand it and make it more international. So I was in Paris, I was in Warsaw, here in London, well, all the New York ones, Argentina. So I'm expanding the scope, which takes a lot of energy and time and work.
Mm.
Also, I'm taking the photos, I'm editing the photos, I'm writing, I'm posting. Many times that people write, "Oh, it tell your team." I'm like, there's no team here. It's
Oh,
a one-person show, which is
wow.
can be exhausting,
Mm,
especially when I have work on other things and I have my personal life. Um, but when I connect to that, basically when you're aligned to what your soul came to do, and this I feel it's part of my soul plan and soul plan and soul contract. I feel that I could not be doing this. So there would be consequences in my life if I were not doing this because it's part of my soul contract. But when you're aligned to that, the energy just flows in. I
mm,
can be physically exhausted, but I can keep going and keep doing and doing the thing. Obviously, I have to take care of myself physically,
yes.
which is part of the grounding and being here.
Mm,
But yeah, that keeps me alive because it's service basically, and it
mm,
goes beyond what I feel like doing or feel like not doing, and sometimes it's now less so, but at the beginning it was very vulnerable because I was expressing. So the account is anonymous, but I have a
mm.
lot of people that know who I am that follow it,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like friends and family members, etc. So many times it was very vulnerable, and
Yeah.
I had to speak and say things that most people in my world didn't want to listen or talk about.
Yes.
So and it was like, oh, should I do it? And I just did it, and again, that in those cases, I connected more with the service and the soul aspect than with my ego, you know, uh, comfort or like or dislike.
Yeah. And then how do you find it in real life? Because I feel like, if you see those people and they,
Well, that now I'm becoming more of a hustler about these things because by definition, many of these things you get to hear about them when they've already happened.
yes.
So if you see it in the, no, I don't watch TV, but
Yeah.
online or when it's reported, it's already happened, and so it's too late. So in order, and for many of these things, especially some that are more smaller groups or issues that are less, appealing, I do my intelligence online and I contact people to see where these things are going to happen and who's going to host it and if it's, and then I make it, but I'm still missing things that when they happen, I'm like, ugh, I really wanted to be in that one, but like there
Yeah.
was no way to know. And obviously, and gets us back to the how information is controlled these days. When you try to look in advance, I know protests in New York, in London, it's gonna show you one little thing about what the system wants you to know about, and all the rest,
Yeah.
nobody's gonna talk about them. You know.
Right.
So yeah, I find my way around, but until I'm I'm doing. Oh, and the other thing I do is I use alternative outlets. Other people that are doing the same thing and going to marches, so I follow them, so I know when there are things that are coming, and I show up. But I've also I have I'm working consciously on not. I'm not a member of any group. I'm
Mm.
not. And many times it's been uncomfortable because some people, when you are aligned, but I've been asked to promote
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
events and things, and
Mm.
even if I'm fully aligned with it, I feel that's not good for my purpose and my message,
Yeah, 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 of course.
because you start becoming part of an echo, so I try to be
Yeah.
very supportive. I share my images, I send them to people, but then I try to keep a sort of energetic neutrality so that newcomers don't feel, oh, this is totally tainted and this is totally right or totally left or totally
Mm.
whatever.
Mm.
And for that it's difficult, but I
Makes
most
sense.
of the accounts and other projects I follow, they are more involved in terms of activism. In
Mm.
my case, I feel it's consciousness activism, but I'm not a part, or I'm supporting any specific person or group, or
Mm.
you
Yeah,
know
makes sense. But
uh
how would you navigate, like you said just now about speaking about things that other people that you know might not talk about, and then you just said it, but then like I feel like sometimes there's such a big difference that you can feel when you see these people and they know that like you're the person behind the account, you know what I mean?
yes, well, many times also with energy, I do energy work. So what I'm writing and the images, those images and words are energy, and
Oof.
they carry energy, and they connect with whoever's reading and seeing the images and reading the words, not only from an unconscious place, but especially from a subconscious place, which is basically 95% of our energy is subconscious. That's
Yeah.
where 95% from where we operate and create is subconscious.
Mm.
So I'm connecting with that, even if their minds have no clue about what we're talking about. And many other times, especially with this world we're in, there's a lot of if you know, you know.
Yes.
Many times I'm working this fine line where I use words and terms and ways of describing things where I don't need to be in your face to whoever reads it. I'm
Working.
that energy will connect with whoever needs to connect. And it's
Mm.
not everyone. Some people will see X, and other people will see Y, and some other people will read X, and in many instances, if there's something in you that's already
Mhm.
vibrating in the same frequency, it will connect. It doesn't matter what I say or not say, or it just happens, and that is in lay terms you would call it if you know, you know,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
because there's something there. I don't need to
Mm.
express it explicitly. It will just happen. The connection will happen. There's something within you that will connect, and I
Mm.
play a lot with that.
That's amazing. I love that.
And I do in my daily meditations. One of the things I do with respect to work, but with like life in general, is this exercise, which is or decree, which is I want my energy to connect and be of service to whoever needs it and is ready to receive it. But I want to be invisible for those who are not ready.
Wow.
And invisible is invisible. So if you're not, I don't want the interaction and the friction. Not ready, don't see it. I don't want it to be visible. And that you can do with yourself, in a party. You can make yourself energetically invisible.
Oh my God, I
And
love this.
and people they won't see you. And I can tell you crazy, surreal stories about this, where you basically decree, I'm invisible, and they go after all this, and they just go by and don't see you. They just don't see you because
So
you are
powerful.
energetically invisible. The
Yeah.
frequencies don't connect. But for that, obviously, you have to work a lot on it. And
Yeah. And it's the intention again as well.
the intention is everything.
Yeah.
As somebody told me a while ago, in the energy world, which is reality, intention is reality.
Ooh.
That is reality. In this other world, this is what they tell you it is, and this is in the energy world, intention is reality. So
Again.
whatever you intend, maybe it does not reflect in this physical, but it is. If you're intentioning healing for yourself, maybe your physical body did not catch up with that
Yes.
intention. It didn't have sufficient time in
Mm-hmm.
the buffer of time between energy and manifestation. But if you are intenting and focus in healing, you're healing. Period. That is reality.
Mm.
But most of the time we get lost in the what we can see with our eyes and we perceive with our senses. So that screws the whole
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
thing
yeah.
because we believe that to be reality when it's not.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah,
so yeah.
another powerful one. That's amazing. I love this. I'm so happy that it feels like it was really unique just because of what you shared about energy and just like really focusing and tuning in.
Because that's what I do.
Yeah.
I see myself as my life now. I work with and for conscience, but with energy, and I use photography as an instrument for that.
Wow, I love that.
And tomorrow could be something else. So that's why, yeah, I'm a photographer, but I the label photographer, I don't feel it represents what I'm doing.
So, and also just with regards to that question as well, do you find that more like this is your outlet for that work and for that purpose is kind of more online than in real life and in person?
I'm doing everything. Working on another project, which is a book. This one will become a book or books in the future. It's also a movement, but I'm working on another one where I already have the draft and they call it the book dummy. I already have it in physical form, and I'm sending it to publishers, which is a doc. During lockdown in New York, when I was still, going through what's going on here, I wanted to generate a space for people to be able to express all their subconscious trauma and anxieties and fears through what they were going through. So the only way I found the way to do it was to create these online spaces where I would do sessions I did it with almost 150 people in almost 40 countries
Wow.
around the world, where we would go in and I would document. It would be like this, and I would be with my camera, and I would ask you to meditate before the session and self-represent whatever came through that you were experiencing in your home, and I would be taking photos of that scene with my camera through the screen online, live, like we're now. And with all those images and testimonies from those people that I gathered, I put together a book.
Oh, wow.
So that's
Yeah.
the other main project I've been working on for the last 3 years and a half.
It's amazing. I feel like it's such a contrast from what you were doing before and now living
Oh,
like
yes, and yes, mega contrast, but on the other hand,
Also, no. It's like
also no. And I have so many instruments that I
learned.
learned and gathered because I was a corporate lawyer,
But
that
like,
otherwise I wouldn't have.
it's just so creative. Like now with the life and what I love as well is like it's like what you're creating is also what you're learning, is also what you're putting out into the world, and
It's all it's a cycle. So what I want to say, I say it for others, but it's also for me. And then what I want to express, it's for others, but it's also for me. And then even what I'm experiencing through the doing of and working on this project is for me. It's a virtuous cycle, I believe. And everything has to do with everything.
Yeah, and it's not like again, it's also just like the reason why you're doing it, not black and white. It's not being selfish or not. It's like, no, this is all connected. It's us.
It's us. Yes, I'm part of the process. Yes.
Yeah, amazing.
So we'll meet each other in person.
Yeah, man, that would be
Let's
so
make it
cool.
happen.
So the question that I love to end the podcast on is quite a big one. And what does freedom mean to you?
Freedom is the capacity to fulfill your soul's plan. So the more you realize what that plan is and you're aligned with it, the freer you are, which again, depending on the perspective, it might sound counterintuitive because it seems as if, oh, there's something then that's imposed on me externally, then that's restricting my freedom. But as I see it is, I'm my higher aspect, my soul, which is a part of me. It's not external, it's a part of me, has this plan. So it's me designing the plan, and the more I fulfill it and align with it, the freer I am.
Yes.
That's freedom.
Wow. You know, I feel like people get so confused with that, like that concept of, you know, astrology as well, like where you were born and what you came here with and am I really, is it free if it's coming from God or, you know?
Yes. It's yes, it has many layers.
Yeah. But and that's the alignment.
At least that's how I live it. So, and again, if I talk about freedom and you do not see it from that perspective, you might be triggered when I say certain things about freedom because it won't match your 3D concept of freedom. But, you know, we're all in our own paths, and that's okay.
Yeah, exactly. Totally. I love it. Thank you so much. It was so amazing.
Thank you, Jess. It's been amazing, and we'll be in touch, and let's meet in person soon.
Yeah, definitely. I would love to.
Great, Jess. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode and to this podcast. We hope that you can gain many insights through the art of listening. If you haven't already, we would love it if you can follow us on YouTube, on Instagram, and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts if that feels right for you. We've also just launched our first online course, Awakening 101. A Ninja's Guide to Navigating Your Spiritual Awakening, which is led by me and is offered via donation. So if you feel called to that, then please dive in. It's available via our website. Thank you.